Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Oh, and we have a good show for you. Larry Smith, glad you're here with us. Mike DeCourcy, the legend, Hall of Famer from Sporting News, is going to join us here talking all things basketball as we're now Sweet 16 time. And that's always a great conversation. Mike is so busy. We appreciate when he spends some time with us. You know, we do, if you're with us there every day, you know that we pride ourselves in having great conversation. And we think we hit that mark really just about every day. I can't think of a day that Tony and I kind of sat down afterwards and Josh and said, it was okay. We may not hit the mark, but our guests hit the mark. And Mike always does that. He's always a bullseye. Can't wait to talk to him. And then later on in the show, Dylan Sinn returns as well, Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, talking Purdue Boilermakers. The Boilers have found their mojo here in these past couple of weeks, winning the Big Ten tournament in 3 games and then the 2 wins last week. They're like Austin Powers, and they're going to dance the way out to San Jose. Oh, behave, baby. And for their own, find their own version of Felicity Shagwell out there. So anyway, we'll talk about that coming up. Some headlines now. Baseball is back. Max Fried, Major League best, 19 wins last year. Got his victory number 1 of 2026 last night. The Yankees, a 5-run second to put away the Giants 7-0 in the managerial debut of the Giants' Tony Vitello, who came from the University of Tennessee. Loses his first game. He'll have more chances to get wins. Yankees led the majors in homers last year, but just 9 singles and a triple to get this win last night. 11 games on tap for Thursday. The famous opening day parade in Cincinnati. 100,000 plus crowding downtown for game 1. Let me tell you, it's a bucket list thing. You got to definitely experience that at least once. A couple of lefties on the mound. Andrew Abbott for the Reds and the visiting Garrett Crochet for Boston. March Madness resuming as Sweet 16 tips off. The West, it's 11 seed Texas taking on number 2 Purdue. 4th seed Arkansas against number 1 Arizona. That's in San Jose. In Houston, it may be the doubleheader of the weekend. Iowa, the 9th seed, after knocking off defending champ Florida, takes on the 4th seed Nebraska Cornhuskers, both out of the Big Ten. 3rd meeting for those two. They split the first 2. And then the other Big Ten team in this bracket is 3rd seeded, I should say, Illinois taking on number 2 Houston. These games in Houston, they're being hosted by Rice University, not University of Houston, which is why the Cougars are allowed to skirt the rules, if you will, and play in their home city. You know, it doesn't appear that UNC's search for a new coach will be brief. Brad Stevens, yesterday of the Celtics front office, said no immediately. TJ Otzelberger of Iowa State, Tommy Lloyd of Arizona, both still in the Sweet 16. Both have said, yeah, I'm probably going to pass. So the speculation on some of the usual suspects, Billy Donovan of the Bulls, Nate Oates of Alabama, Mark Byington at Vandy is an interesting name. He did play at UNC Wilmington. They could all get calls. We'll see how this plays out. 24/7 Sports reporting LSU wants Will Wade back to replace the guy who replaced him, Matt McMahon, who, by the way, is still employed by LSU. Wade is denying those reports. He's in the first year of a 6-year deal at NC State. He was ousted at LSU for alleged violations. And that brings us to our next guest here. This is kind of a bizarre. You have a coach, but you're chasing a coach, reportedly. I don't know. Maybe this guy was off. But anyway, this guy's never off. Mike DeCourcy, the Hall of Famer, the Sporting News, Big Ten Network, Fox Sports, and he's a regular on the show coming on. Mike, good to see you again.
Hi, Larry. How are you?
I'm doing great. This Will Wade thing is kind of odd. I mean, he dismissed it right away. Usually, you know how these things go. You're not going to go to print, at least most of us won't, unless there's some kind of smoke somewhere. So this is kind of where we are. We're going to not only poach players in season, but also still kind of go after coaches as well, I guess.
Well, that's the thing that is amazing is that this goes on, and yet it's such a tragedy if a player leaves and becomes immediately eligible. But for coaches, you can potentially, we're still at the potential stage, go from one school to another in a 3-year period. And no one complains about that. I don't understand why there have to be guardrails on the athletes, but not on the coaches. And the idea, well, they all have buyouts. Well, if you give the players contracts, then they'll have buyouts, but you don't want to acknowledge them as employees, which I get, or even as some sort of 1099 employees or something like that, where whatever. They don't want that. Okay. But you can't complain about what the consequences of that are.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where we are, just in this murky area that nobody seems to want to step in and clean up. And I don't know now at this point, the cat's out of the bag, toothpaste out of the tube. I don't know if we put the horse back in the barn, whatever analogy you want to use. But anyway, look, that aside, let's get to the action. I saw a lot of people out there putting out, we had our stuff yesterday as well, in terms of kind of the new elites of college basketball and teams who've done so much here since COVID. Great piece I saw, and it was out there, first time since 1954, that neither UCLA, Kentucky, North Carolina, or Kansas are in the Sweet 16. That's okay, because we have 8 outstanding matchups. I mean, when you sit down and kind of dig into each one of these, I don't know how I'm going to find a second TV somewhere. So there's not a single game I want to miss these next 2 nights.
They are great games, but they're usually great games. It is interesting. One of the things that I think, Larry, is there were a lot of conversations. I was watching some of the Field of 68 on Tuesday night, and there were some conversations about making premature decisions, and I think they specifically applied to Carolina. And while I agree that there is a problem with making rushed premature decisions, I don't think it necessarily applied in Carolina's case. I think they had enough of a body of work to understand that there wasn't a consistency there, that the kind of consistent excellence that you're used to. Okay, so if you take a half step back at Carolina, you get it because you know what the 2 steps forward that are coming. And I don't think they had that for the last 5 years. And I think that they hired Hubert to continue a tradition more so than hiring someone who was the ideal candidate. I don't think the ideal candidate for North Carolina is going to go in 0-0 most of the time. What happened at Duke was different in part because they planned for it. Mike said, okay, I'm going to step aside and we're going to hire my replacement and he's going to sit next to me. But while he's sitting next to me, he's in charge of recruiting the next team. And that transition really helped Duke. But Carolina wasn't in position to do that. Roy's decision was not planned out in the same way. If he knew that that's what he was going to do, he didn't make it public and share it. And maybe he didn't know. I don't think Roy and I have ever had this conversation, but he didn't decide or didn't announce that decision until after the season was over, the 21 season. And so they didn't have that opportunity to plan. But now they have a chance to say, okay, what's the best coach for us? Regardless of where he went to college or where he's worked in his career, who's the best coach out there that we can get? And I think they're going through that process now. I chuckled at the whole Brad Stevens thing. I'm like, why do we have to do this every time? Right. He's not coming. He's got a better job. He doesn't have to coach, and he gets paid probably more than twice what Hubert was making. We don't know what Carolina is willing to pay the next coach, but certainly more than twice what Hubert was making. So why would people think he was going to do that? I don't know. But there are coaches out there. And if you look at it, I always say, look a level down. And that doesn't mean in talent. That just means in where they currently are employed. And so I don't think that Tommy Lloyd's coming. I think Tommy Lloyd is certainly happy to be in that conversation because it means that Arizona will want to keep him more and up his contract. So when he's asked about it, he doesn't say, I'm not going. He says, well, this is my focus. This is my team. And meanwhile, his agent's saying, see, there are other people want him. You better give him some more money. We go through this every year, Larry, and it seems like the public never learn the lesson. And the reason they don't learn the lesson is because the media aren't filtering the lesson for them. Yeah. They should be. They should be saying, look, we know what's going on here because we haven't seen this. Like Tommy Lloyd has not left for a Carolina in forever.
Right.
When the Kentucky job opened 2 years ago, every report I read, Nate Oates, Scott Drew, Dan Hurley, and the night it happened, the night that John left for Arkansas, I wrote, those things aren't happening. You're going to wind up with Pope. with Mark Pope. Watch. And I was excoriated from one end of the Commonwealth to the other for daring to suggest that Mark Pope would be the next coach. And 4 days later, who was the next coach? And I'm just saying we all should be doing this.
Yeah. Cut through the mess. Don't you think also part of this is a bit of hubris here? Here in the Bluegrass, there are people who still are, when Kentucky got off the slow start and they were getting beat up by every top 25 team they faced, saying, well, Dan Hurley should take this job. And I tried to explain to them, same thing. Dan Hurley's not coming here. UConn is a new blue blood. There's nothing Kentucky can give him he doesn't already have at home in the Northeast. And I think that's part of it too. It's like, well, it's school X, therefore, if they call, then you have to come running. And that's not the case.
Exactly. And I think it's important to understand now everybody has money. Well, not everybody, but all of the biggest programs have money, or they wouldn't be the biggest programs. The brand still matters some, but I'll tell you what you get. And this goes back to what I was talking about with the Field of 68, and was that what you get is in places like Kentucky, where it doesn't happen in 2 years. And now all of a sudden there is a portion of the fan base, we don't know how large, but there's a portion of the fan base that has made its mind up on Mark Pope. Like, wait a second. The guy has been there for 2 years. He recruited a great team the first year and lost his point guard he never got him fully back. He came back, but he never was as good as he had been for the first 2.5 months of the season. And then you lost a starting wing in Jackson Robinson, who was a double-figure scorer, and you still made the Sweet 16. This year, you recruited a big man who played, I think, 3 games. And yeah, you could say, well, you shouldn't have invested in a guy who just got his ACL torn and whether he'd be back. You can say that, and I don't totally disagree with that. But I also point out that the supply of such players is pretty limited. I mean, you look at Purdue, which is getting very fine play out of Oscar Clough. He's a very capable college player doing a very nice job, but he's not a perfect fit for what they needed. They needed a face-up guy that could stretch the defense away from Trey Kaufman-Wren, or they needed a pogo-type shot blocker, a guy like Kaman Malawach was last year for Duke, so that the rim was protected and your defensive flaws weren't as profound. And they got Oscar, who is big and strong and occupies his space and rebounds well and finishes plays, but he's a lot like Trey, just taller. And so it's not ideal. So you get the guys you can get. In Kentucky's case, they got a player who was coming off an ACL tear and who wound up playing a very short period of time. And they brought in Jalen Lowe to play point guard, and Jalen hurt his shoulder, and that had nothing to do with anything that had ever happened to him before. It just happened. And they didn't have great coverage for that. And so they struggled. It's just, so you can't make decisions on whether a guy can coach based on a couple of years of evidence, and both of which they produced significant victories and advanced in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, I think next year's a big year for him. And I wish that they had done a better job in the fall in terms of recruiting high school players. But I think before you condemn him and decide that basically what you're deciding, if you make a move now, and they're not going to, but if they did, like some fans want, you're basically showing people that your job is harder than all the other jobs, not easier.
Right. Yeah. And it's not fair too with Mitch Barnhart, the longtime AD, one of the best in the business, retiring or stepping into a retirement role, if you will, a different position, no longer the AD coming here starting in July. So that's another reason why that's not going to happen, and trying to get fans to understand that you're right. Talking with Mike DeCourcy, a Hall of Fame writer with the Sporting News, Big Ten Network, and Fox Sports. You mentioned John Calipari, that we've got to Purdue conversation coming up here in a few minutes on the show. John Calipari, he's coaching like it's 1999 down there. He's the guy who couldn't reach the Sweet 16 this decade at Kentucky, but he's done it now back-to-back years and taking on number 1 seed Arizona in the West tonight.
It's going to be very interesting because Arkansas's team is not as complete as Arizona's is. Arkansas doesn't defend well at all. They'll block some shots, so you have to be wary of that when you get the ball deep. But you're getting the ball deep. They don't stop you from the perimeter, and that's the problem that they have. But there's a very good chance that they're going to outscore you, and you have to be really wary of that. There's nobody playing the point guard position any better than what you're getting at Arkansas. You've got Trevin Brazile playing really effectively on the perimeter. Malik Thomas, Pittsburgh guy, have to point that out. The phenomenal wing scorer. They've got so much going on offense that your worry when you come in is we have to find a way to slow them down enough that and even if you don't want to play slow, you have to slow them down. You have to keep the Darius Acuff out of the lane. You have to keep him from making deep shots before your defense is set up. All of that plays into it. I don't think you can win with a defense like Arkansas plays. No one's ever done it. In the Ken Palm era, starts in 1997, we started giving us his offensive and defensive efficiency numbers. Nobody has ever won with a defense like this. That they're in the 50s the last time I looked in terms of defensive efficiency. You don't win like that. You usually have to be either in or adjacent to the top 20, and that's where Illinois would come in. Illinois right now is 24th. If they win it, they'll finish 15th or something. If they keep winning games, they're going to play effective. But they had to keep playing effective defense to get to 24 because they weren't always here. They've played better defense over the last several weeks as Kylan Boswell has come back and been reabsorbed into the team. They're starting to play better defense. But Arkansas right now, you look at them and they are 53rd in defense. And so in that sense, they're very similar to Purdue a year ago. Elite offense, but defense is going to yield at some point. And I think the problem for Arizona is you don't want that. You want that to be on your watch, that the defense finally proves fallible. Because at some point it's going to happen. They've got 4 more games. One of those 4 games is probably going to get them. But if you're Arizona, it's got to be your game.
Right. Exactly. I'd be remiss if I didn't get in a question about the Big Ten. You do spend so much time at Big Ten Network, do such great stuff in the studio. Always enjoy your work, of course. 6 teams in the Sweet 16. We'll see 4 of them in action tonight. You mentioned Purdue, the other game there in San Jose. In Houston, it's interesting. It's almost like the Big Ten tournament said, let's try it out, a tournament down here. Iowa and Nebraska in one game, and then you mentioned Illinois playing in the marquee game maybe of this round against the 2-seed Houston Cougars.
Yeah, it's the best game of the round, no doubt. There's no question, because both of them have the ability to win it. They aren't the odds-on favorites in either case, but they both could win it. And I look at it as, you're looking at a matchup. I mentioned the Pomeroy numbers before. The number 4 defense in the country in Houston, and right now the number 2 offense in Illinois. So it's absolutely a battle of strength on strength. And I think it's going to be very challenging for the Illini. As I talked before about the Illini's defense, if you were Illinois and this tournament were 3 weeks ago and you were matched up with Houston, you'd be playing against an Emmanuel Sharp, for instance, that played against Kansas and went 1 for 10, played against Colorado, went 2 for 7, played against Oak State, went 3 for 8, and in between he had a 6 of 12 against Baylor. So that was what you were going against, but that's not Emmanuel right now. He is playing much better basketball, and they don't survive. They maybe survive to here without him playing better, but they don't survive to where they want to go if he's not playing better. It has to be good, and in this tournament right now, he's a combined 11 of 18 from the field. Now, some of that's against Idaho, but a good chunk of it's against Texas A&M. He averaged 17 points in those 2 games. With the pro talent they have now, Kingston Fleming's at guard spot, Chris Sinak up front, those guys are the difference in Houston's potential to win it all. I talk about this a lot. After I left the Florida locker room last year and then the Houston locker room, I was walking back thinking about writing, and I came upon a group of reporters gathered around Kelvin Sampson, and he was obviously heartbroken. I mean, they came as close as you can come to winning it without winning it. And he said, this team was built to win this tournament. And I thought to myself, as if it was a gift from Kelvin to me. We've been friends for a long time. But Kelvin, I didn't say anything at the time, but it was exactly fit the tone of my article, because my article was going to be about why Walter Clayton, even on a night when he didn't score, his ability, his NBA level ability, still made the difference in the game, because he did that closeout that forced Sharp to drop the ball and forced the turnover, and they clinch it. And they were not built to win it a year ago because they had everything that you could possibly have except the talent. You can't win this thing without Keaton Wagler. You can't. No one since 1987 has done that, has won without an NBA first-round pick. And now Houston has that. So Kingston Fleming's going to be a tough assignment. Sinak's a really nice player who will contribute. But for me, it comes down to Emmanuel Sharp, Milo Suzan, guys who have been up and down this year, while those freshmen have been, especially Fleming's, have been really constant. I was talking to someone about this game, and what you have to do, I think, against Illinois is you have to figure that, okay, Kingston Fleming's going to go ahead and score. He's going to get his, so to speak. You got to make it hard as you can. But if you give up 24 to Kingston Fleming's, that probably doesn't beat you, as long as Emmanuel and Milos aren't out there making buckets and tearing you apart. Kingston Fleming's, if you didn't overly defend Kingston Fleming's, he's gonna have a nice night. But the key is that he's probably not going for 40. That's not the way he plays. So again, make it hard. Make him a passer, and then make sure that when he's passing, he's not getting great opportunities. He's just giving up the ball, because that's the key. I do think that Illinois has that capacity. And then on offense, against this great defense that Houston plays, I think they have to have the one thing that I've been critical of Illinois this year is they have so many options that what they want to do in a given game or in a given series of games is not always apparent, because it seems as if they immediately go to plan B if plan A gets shut down, and they don't make you react to plan A all the time. And I think you have to do that to win this. I think you have to have an identity that the other team feels compelled to take away, because if you start searching for options, by the time you find the right one, you might already be behind more than you can cover to get back. So against this team, I don't think you want to play a ton on the inside, but I think the driving action that you do, if you go in like Andre Stojakovic, if you go in with a purpose, not just I'm getting this ball to the rim no matter what, but you react to what their reaction is. And I think that's the key. And obviously they have three guys who can penetrate with the best. And look, if Andre can get it to the rim, good luck to him. But getting it to the rim against JoJo Tugler is not easy, because he's not super tall. And so you think, well, he's not going to get this shot. He'll get it. He's unbelievably quick off the floor. His length is ridiculous. And so you have to be aware. But then you have Keaton and then you have Kylan. Those guys can all get the ball into the lane, and they have to be doing that with the design not to get their shot blocked, but maybe to draw some fouls, maybe to do some kickouts, maybe to do some alley-oops over the top. All those things will be a factor. But I think penetrating the defense, they're really tough to get the ball into the lane against. But when you have that many options, and if you keep the ball moving, I think you have a chance to do that.
Yeah, great stuff. These great games are outstanding. Boy, it'd be great if we could just bring you in our living room and watch these games with you, Mike. Great to talk with you as always. Glad your travels. You're home for a few days. You're probably back on the road next week, of course. But thanks again, as always, man, for your time. Good to see you.
Thanks, Larry.
All right, brother. Appreciate it. Mike DeCourcy, once again, Hall of Fame writer, the Sporting News, Big Ten Network, also Fox Sports, and one of the all-time legends. So we are thrilled he's spending some time with us. Okay, much more to come here on the Sports IQ. Conversation about Purdue still on the way.
Those old golf clubs sitting in your garage right now, there's a good chance they're worth real money. That driver you replaced, those irons you upgraded, even that putter collecting dust. Golf Roots lets you trade them in for cash or credit toward your next set. And right now, Sports IQ listeners get exclusive offers. Take $20 off any order over $100 with code SIQSALE, or get a 15% bonus on your trade-in value with code SIQTRADEIN. That means the clubs in your garage could be worth even more. Golf Roots is on a mission to make golf more accessible, offering high-quality, pre-owned name brand clubs for every skill level. And if you're just starting out, the Just the Roots starter set is one of the most affordable ways to begin, with full trade-in credit when you're ready to upgrade. So don't let your old gear sit there losing value. Go to golfroots.com and see how you can start or upgrade your golf journey today. Use code SIQSALE for $20 off or SIQ Trade-In for 15% extra when you trade in your old clubs. That's golfroots.com. Golf Roots. Upgrade smarter.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
My goodness, so great to talk to Mike. We got to get him, just find a time we get him on for an hour, just there's so many things that we want to get to, but he's so good. Let's get some other stories right now before we bring Dylan on to talk about Purdue. The NBA voting to discuss adding expansion teams in Seattle and Las Vegas. Let the bidding begin. Franchise fees expected to be between $7 and $10 billion. I mean, it is just insane. And in fact, if you've seen the ABA documentary that's out, we've talked about before, Soul Court, is that what it's called? It's so good. You got to see it. They talked about back in 1966, if you wanted an ABA franchise, $5,000. $5,000. Of course, the NBA is not a startup, but still, 7 to 10 billion is what they're talking about. It appears now this is now a question of when, not if. And so we'll see what happens. We'll talk more about that another time, but let that process begin. Meanwhile, speaking of the NBA, on the court, the Hawks beating Detroit last night, 130 to 129 in overtime to snap the Pistons' 4-game win streak. CJ McCollum and Jalen Johnson each 27 points. Atlanta, an NBA best 15-2 since the All-Star break. Break out the Hawk. Luka scoring 43, Reeves 25, LeBron 23. Lakers get back to winning 137-130 win over Indiana as they finish out their 6-game road trip. Celtics Jaylen Brown scores 31 points as Boston rallies for a 119-109 win over OKC. That snaps the Thunder's 12-game win streak. Jason Tatum adding 19 points, 12 boards, and 7 assists. What he is doing coming back from injury is just fantastic. Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic putting on a show in Denver. Murray, 53 points. Jokic almost went for 20-20-20. 23 points, 21 boards, and 19 assists. Another triple-double. Denver beats Dallas 142 to 135. In Minneapolis, Julius Randle hit the go-ahead jumper with 8.8 seconds left in overtime to cap a game-closing 15-0 run by the T-Wolves. 110-108 victory over Houston on Wednesday. Minnesota overcame a 13-point deficit in overtime. The biggest comeback since detailed play-by-play throughout the game began back in 1997. Just unbelievable with that. Another story to pass along quickly to you. According to ESPN, a woman in Los Angeles has filed a civil lawsuit against Puka Nacua, alleging the Rams wide receiver made an unprovoked anti-Semitic statement and later bit her on the shoulder. The lawsuit cites gender violence, assault, battery, and negligence. The plaintiff, Madison Atabi, alleged the events happened on New Year's Eve in Century City there in the LA area. In the court document obtained by ESPN, the woman said Nacua said, "F all the Jews," and that she immediately felt uncomfortable and emotionally distressed because of her Jewish faith. Later in the lawsuit, Atabi said she was in a car with Nacua when he forcibly bit her on the left shoulder, leaving a circular imprint of his teeth on her body. The lawsuit also alleges Nacua bit her friend's thumb in the car with such force that her companion screamed in acute pain. The woman filed for a temporary restraining order, but that request was denied. A hearing is scheduled for April 14th, according to multiple reports. There's a bad joke to be made here about Puka, but I'm going to leave it alone. Okay. Dude, what are you doing? Come on. He's accused, alleged. We'll see what happens. All right. Dylan Sinn coming up next. Let's talk to these Purdue Boilermakers. Are they a real threat to win the West? That's next.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Once again, Sweet 16 is here, and one of the big games tonight we're watching, number 2 Purdue, the 2 seed in the West region, had the great games there in St. Louis, taking on the 11th seed, the Cinderella, if you will, though I kind of have a hard time calling a team from a Power 5 conference a Cinderella, but that's just where we are. They were the 11th seed, already 3 wins to get here to take on the Boilermakers tonight. Joining us once again is Dylan Sinn, who covers Purdue, Indiana college basketball. One of the great young writers in our midst right now. Dylan, good to talk with you here. Okay, so Purdue. Let's first talk about this weekend in St. Louis. Look, they look really strong. This was a team we thought we were going to see at the beginning of the season. It's like they found their mojo all of a sudden.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's kind of the best way to put it, is that they struggled a lot during the season, especially on defense. I think that was kind of the number one thing that they struggled with, was especially defending the 3-point line. They didn't rotate very well. They didn't play good perimeter defense, and that got them in rotations and created opportunities for 3-pointers for other teams. And that's why they lost a lot of the games they did. Their offense was very good throughout the season, but their defense has been much better, especially in the Big Ten tournament and now in the NCAA tournament, has been much, much better. They're taking more pride in their defense. They're defending on the perimeter. They're doing better in rotations, all of it. And crucially, they're rebounding better. They had been pretty good at rebounding during the season, but they've been very good at it in the postseason here. So Trey Kaufman, Oscar Clough, those guys inside, very, very good rebounders for Purdue, and they're making it one and done for opposing teams. And that's how they were able to win those first 2 games, in large part was shutting down opposing teams on defense, especially in the second half against Miami, and then really just being one of the most efficient offensive teams in the country, which is what they've been the whole season.
Yeah, they're so fluid, and we've talked about you have the 3 senior guys all together all along in Smith Lawyer and Kaufman Wren, which is, they mentioned the broadcast, I think it was on Sunday, how unusual that is. I mean, we all know that too. What is it about this Purdue team that found their mojo, right? You kind of touched on it again. Did Matt Painter, has he talked about adjustments made, or do they all go, I don't know, to an overnight camp and sing Kumbaya at the cabin at the lake? What are they, because I saw that game. They played at Ohio State. Now, Ohio State was playing gangbusters or playing at home, but they were outplayed in that game. I mean, they were down, double digits most of the way. To see that team, and then the team that comes out and puts up 3 really quality wins against NCAA tournament teams at the Big Ten tournament, was a quantum leap there just in a matter of days.
I mean, absolutely. It really is. That's kind of the question of the season, is why they were able to flip that switch the way they were, because it really does seem like a switch has been flipped to a large extent. And I think the simplest explanation is that these guys you talked about, Trey Kaufman, Ryan, and Braden Smith, and Fletcher Lawyer, the guys that have been there for 4 years for Purdue, they knew during the season, and they never acknowledged this, they never admitted it, they wouldn't say it out loud, but they knew that their legacy was going to be written in large part in the postseason for them, right? Like, whatever they did in the regular season, that's great, that's gravy for them. But their legacy at Purdue was in large part going to be written in this NCAA tournament, and to a lesser extent in the Big Ten tournament, right? Like, the postseason was what they were pointed toward. And so it's easy to lose focus when you played that many games and you play that many games together. You can lose focus a little bit. And I don't know if that's what happened, but that's at least one plausible explanation for why they were able to kind of figure things out and just lock in a little bit, because they know what it takes to win in the postseason. Now, more concretely, what happened is that Oscar Clough has become a 35 minute a game guy. Their center, the guy they brought in from South Dakota State. He was good for most of the season, a little bit on and off. There were some games where he kind of disappeared a little bit, and there were some really big games. But he's been consistently excellent in this postseason. One of the best rebounders in college basketball in this postseason. He's getting to every ball, and he's scoring inside as well. And I think that is the biggest reason concretely that you can point to and say Purdue is a better team now than they were 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, even a team that, I mean, lost 5 games at Mackey. I mean, I think they don't do that over 5 years or 3 years in one season. Talking with Dylan Sinn of the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, Purdue taking on Texas in one of the games tonight, round of 16 right now here in the NCAA tournament. At this point, too, I would like to think, and I'm sure this is part of it, too, you mentioned, again, the experience with that core trio that Matt Painter has there, is that they had this experience. I mean, all 3 of these guys played for the national championship, 2 years ago. I mean, they've got great NCAA experience. And to your point, it may be a thing where not that the regular season is blasé or that you don't care, but when you've been there to that mountaintop, before, that's where the real excitement is. And I think we're seeing that with some of these teams now, because we do have a lot of while the freshmen have been great this season, we have a lot of veteran teams. You go up and down the lineup here, these 16 teams, and you have a lot of veteran players with names we followed for years. And I think that's one too, where the understanding of the moment that it's you either get it done tonight or you go home.
I think that's exactly what it is. And I think for this Purdue team, especially where, I mean, you talked about they played the national championship game 2 years ago. These players, these seniors were not just on that team, they were starting for that team, right? Like Trey Coffin-Wren was the backup center for that team behind Zach Edey, but Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer were starting for that team. They started for 4 years. So they know what March Madness is. They were in the Sweet 16 last year. They were in the Final Four the year before. They know what the postseason is and how to raise your level of play in the postseason to make sure you're playing your best in March. And so these guys are veterans, and they brought along a younger core that also got some reps last year. Like they don't have a ton of freshmen in the rotation. This team, they have a lot of guys who are sophomores, juniors, seniors who were in last season's team, who are on last season's team that helped them make that run to face Houston in the round of 16. So they have experience. They've been here before, and they seem to have figured out a way. We're going to flip a switch. We're going to get better at the right time of the season.
So 5 straight wins now for Purdue here in the postseason. Now they've got Texas, a team that's found their way. Again, one of the teams that was on the bubble, barely made it in, one of the last 4 bids handed out. But they've looked very strong in these 3 games, putting away their opponents. What concerns you about tonight's game against the Longhorns for Purdue?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be another physical battle for Purdue, right? They're going to have to show once again that they are the tougher team because that's what Texas wants to do, right? There are a lot of teams that were in college basketball that rely on 3-point shooting, that they just want to shoot 15 threes or make 15 threes a game and win that way. Texas is not one of those teams, right? They want to bully you, and that's kind of the way they won games in this tournament. And so Purdue is going to have to match their physicality, match their energy, match their intensity once again, because this is a Texas team that is playing with house money, essentially. They didn't expect to be here. Dylan Sinn, their forward, their leading scorer, is a very, very good player. They're probably going to put CJ Cox on him if he's healthy. That's kind of a question for Purdue. CJ Cox missed most of the second half against Miami, their best defensive guard and a really valuable 3-point shooter for them. Is he healthy enough? And we'll learn more about that today. Is he healthy enough to guard Dylan Sinn? Because that's the guy you want on him. So we'll see. But I think that is kind of the number one thing for Purdue is matching the energy and intensity of a team that is playing with house money, that didn't expect to be here. It's like, all right, let's just leave it all out there.
Yeah. I'm excited to see the possibilities if both the favorites win tonight and have a Purdue-Arizona regional final, one that so many people begin, because Purdue, again, we it's easy to forget they were the preseason number 1. They were coming in as the number 1 team in the country in the offseason and, held on to that until they had the home loss against Iowa State and then other losses, Illinois, Michigan State that followed later. We mentioned all the home losses this year. But boy, what a bracket buster they would be if they could come through and win that West region when most people, including myself, have put Arizona in as our champion, and then Purdue coming in right there. They could be a couple steps away from the championship that I've always wanted there in West Lafayette.
Yeah, it is interesting because, like you said, they were the preseason number 1. This was the team that people thought could finally get Purdue over the hump. And I mean, they lost 4 of 6 games to end the regular season. They really slid toward the end of that season. And then you face an Arizona team that's been so good. If you can get through Texas, obviously, you face an Arizona team that's been so good all season. But that's a team that's had a lot of heartbreak in March, right? Like under whether it's Lute Olson, whether it's Tommy Lloyd, whoever, for a long time, Arizona has had a lot of heartbreak in March, kind of like Purdue along the way. So one of those teams is going to get a breakthrough to the Final Four here. Obviously, that would be 2 and 3 years for Purdue. But Arizona is a team that has lost some games in March that they expected to win. But they are, to me, I agree with you. I picked them to win the whole thing. I think they're the best team in the tournament. But that would be a real test against Purdue, which is like we talked about, has kind of caught fire here and has figured out what they're doing in the postseason. And that would be a great way for Arizona to say, here we are. If you can dispatch Purdue that's playing as well as anyone, we're going to the Final Four, and you better watch out for us because we're the best team here.
Yeah, and to your point, Sean Miller, also a coach of some of those Arizona teams that came up short and got their heart broken in late March. You're exactly right. And what a story it would be for him if the Longhorns go through and a guy who was really kind of shown the door in Arizona had, goes to Xavier and reinvents himself, and now he's back with the Power Conference there with the Big 12. So Purdue, Texas tonight. I want to ask you, well, I've got a couple of minutes here. Dylan Sinn here, Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, talking about the Indiana Hoosiers. Meanwhile, first-year coach, get some
won some games. They missed out on the tournament. They really faltered down the stretch, but then turned down the NIT bid. And I know that's the thing to do now. Teams will say, if we can't play in the big dance, I don't want to play anywhere else. But I was disappointed because I feel like, and we talked about this in yesterday's show, that Indiana is one of the blue bloods that needs to be revitalized. Their brand needs to be revitalized. And even though it's only the NIT, I just felt that if Indiana could go in and prove that they deserved a bid, it might take step one into helping put them back among, on the nation's radar. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question, right? Because it's probably team specific at this point, because college basketball is such a year-to-year proposition at this point. And for Indiana, I mean, their top six players, their top six scorers are all graduating, right? They're all gone. They are all out of eligibility. So it would make more sense to take the NIT bid if you had a team of young guys that you were trying to develop for next season, right? This isn't really that with the Indiana team. I think it kind of seemed toward the end of the season, this team was just out of gas, right? Like, they lost 5 out of 6 to end the season. They got blown out in the Big Ten tournament by a Northwestern team that wasn't very good during the year. That second half, it just didn't seem like it seemed like they were about done. And so it would have been a couple more weeks of preparation with that team that it didn't really seem like had a lot of basketball left in it, frankly. And so it is one of those things where now they're going to need to replace a lot of those guys. They're going to need to do it through the transfer portal, very likely. And so you're going to get a jump start. If you don't do the NIT, you're getting a jump start with Darren DeVries, with his staff, on transfer portal evaluations, which is going to be extremely important for getting this roster to where they want it for next season. So I understand what you're saying, absolutely, and I see the idea behind it. But I think for this team in particular, I think they were just out of basketball, basically.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and that's why I ask it, and that's why I asked you, because I knew you'd give me, and that makes perfect sense. This is a team that, in other words, behind closed doors, look, we might win one game. We ain't going to Hinkle. That's not going to happen.
Probably not. No, it would have been my guess. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, that's the next kind of thing that we're dealing with right now, is in terms of NIL transfer portal. You have some teams doing it very well. Those are the teams we're finding here in these last 3 or 4 years that have kind of risen, and they're still active right now. And then you have teams like Indiana that aren't doing it very well. And it seems to me that it's one of these things where we're seeing, like right now, Kentucky doesn't have a single high school recruit signed for the next class, and it's late March. How much can you depend on the transfer portal to get the guys you want when the top guys, I mean, the bidding war has already begun through third parties? I mean, we'd be naive to think that's not happening. It just seems like such a risky proposition to not try to find a way. And I know it's only his first year there, to bring those two together and have those developmental guys you can bring as at the backbone of the program, and still bring in the imports, if you will, and to try to make up stir the string.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think so. For Indiana, they have 3 guys that they're bringing in the high school recruiting class this year. 3 guys, all of whom they really like, and a couple of whom they think can be pretty immediate contributors. So that's an important part of it too. And they do have a couple of guys coming back from this past year too. I'm not sure exactly how many. We'll have to see how many transfer out. They have at least one starter who I think should probably be back next season, Nick Dorn, who was a really good pickup for them from Elon, a really good shooter for them. I think he can be a valuable piece of this next year's team. But I think in terms of the transfer portal, I think they're really going to go all in on some really high level guys this year, would be my guess. They hired a general manager. Executive director of basketball is his official title. They hired him in February, came from the Indiana Pacers, IU alum. Really, really important ad for them to kind of get things ready. Obviously, you talked about transfer portal doesn't open until April 7th, but the discussions are happening behind the scenes and have been for several weeks. We all know that. And so Indiana hired someone to make sure that they were ready for the very beginning of those discussions. They very likely been having those behind the scenes. I think they're going to go hunting for some big names this offseason and try to really up the level of talent on this team, especially in the front court. That's something that Darren DeVries talked about, is that Indiana just wasn't really strong enough in the front court this season to really bang with some of the elite teams in the Big Ten. And they're going to try to rectify that this offseason. So we'll see how that goes. But they're building through high school. But for this season specifically, to get back to the tournament, just to give Darren DeVries some more time to build the program, you got to go through the transfer portal this offseason at least.
Yeah. Okay. Another fair answer. Big Ten,
Man, 6 teams in the Sweet 16. I mean, it is an elite conference right now. What a year they've had. And that's fun. Purdue, by the way, a big part of that. So listen, Dylan Sinn, always good to talk with you. Great to have you on the show. And love your insights. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk with you soon.
Absolutely, Larry. Thanks for having me on. As always, this was a lot of fun.
Always. Oh, it's always a great conversation. That's right. So Dylan Sinn, thanks so much. Once again, covering Purdue basketball, Indiana as well, but mainly Purdue, Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Always good to have him here on the show. Sports IQ with Larry Smith continues. Keep it here.
Listen, were you forced into getting a solar contract and now you just don't want it anymore? Maybe the solar company misled you. Or is your solar contract buried with hidden fees? Are you not saving the amount of money you thought you would on your energy costs? Don't worry. At the Solar Exit Hotline, we can help you cancel your solar contract, even if the panels are already installed. Our experienced legal team will review your contract and help you cancel it, possibly saving you thousands of dollars. You got to call right now for complete details. So listen, if you're not happy with your solar contract for any reason, we are here to help you cancel it. Call the Solar Exit Hotline now for immediate options to help you exit your solar contract. This call is 100% free.
Call 855-227-0286. That's 855-227-0286. Call us right now.
As we said off the top of the show, it is the official opening day. One game last night out in San Francisco, but the day begins today. Producer Tony, you are maybe the biggest baseball fan I know. I used to be really, really into it like you. The 94 strike, the 94 work stoppage kind of took some of the juice out of it, but I still enjoy it. But man, we were talking before. Strange not to have everybody playing on day one. It's kind of a strange thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it the last few years. We've opened the season in Japan, and we've opened the season in Korea one year, and all these other places. And last night we opened in San Francisco. At least we're back in the U.S., but we opened at night. There's a reason it's called opening day, people. Opening day. Play during the day. I get it. Your baseball, you've got a new streaming partner. Streaming partner wanted exclusivity. That was part of the deal. So they get the first game all by themselves to showcase their product, blah, blah, blah. I get it. But you do it injustice to the fans who enjoy opening day. Those of us that remember what opening day was all about, that it was played during daylight. And that's the key. You enjoyed opening day. And the other thing is, Larry, can we move it back to April 1st? Yeah. I mean, look, baseball's back. That's awesome. I get it. But baseball season should start April 1st. There should be, some sort of unwritten rule. Like, we don't play before April 1st. That's the first game. Off we go. I'd even settle for March 31st. But a week before, on the 25th, it's just a little too soon for me. You've still got all of March Madness, NBA, NHL, everything's going on. Give yourself some space, and let people kind of get used to baseball being back instead of rushing it. And I know this is a not good thought among baseball owners and people who are making money. Play less games, and you can start a little bit later. Go back to what it used to be. There was a time when baseball season was 154 games. Go back to that.
Yeah. Shorten the season a little bit. I mean, you're making plenty of money. But I agree with you that it was not on my radar. I'm programmed to think baseball March 31st, April 1st. And when I saw that NBC has the Dodgers game tonight with the ring ceremony, I'm like, wait a minute. It's a Sweet 16. Like, this is a regular season? Really? I had to go look it up. Like, oh, it is a regular season. And that's part of the point, too. You steal some of the luster. You've got 4 amazing games tonight that many sports fans will be dialed into those. And they're not going to be watching the Dodgers getting their rings and starting the season.
Exactly. You're losing out on another portion of the audience. I'd love to see baseball try to capture that audience a little harder by counter programming to some of the things. Going up against March Madness is it's kind of like TV suicide right there. It's like scheduling a sporting event after the kickoff of the Super Bowl. Hello. That's a no starter right there. So I'm kind of disappointed that because there's going to be a bunch of opening day games that will like again, if you're opening day,
Yeah.
finish all these games by 8:00. Guess what? Everybody can go watch March Madness. You got your lead in, all these day games. Everybody's playing during the day. Let the basketball have the evening part of the hour. So
yeah. Totally agree. Well, there it is. Mark it down. Our first of many baseball conversations we will have here on the Sports IQ here in 2026. All right, Tony, appreciate that. Okay, fantastic moment of Oz up next.
Are you paying too much for term life insurance? There's a tremendous price war among the major term life companies. Rates have dropped dramatically in the past few years. For example, a man age 45 non-tobacco user, $1 million of coverage is only $75 per month, level for the next 10 years. Or a man age 50 non-tobacco user can buy $500,000 of coverage for a monthly premium of only $110, guaranteed not to change for the next 20 years. That's right, level rates for 20 years. And if you're a smoker, we have great rates for you as well. At the Term Lifeline, we specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. So if you're looking for new or replacement term life insurance, call right now for a free quote.
Rates and availability may vary by state. Sample rate quotes are based on preferred non-tobacco underwriting exam required to qualify.
Call 855-826-7932. 855-826-7932. That's 855-826-7932.
Time now for today's moment of awe. And it truly is a defining moment in basketball history. On this date in 1979, Michigan State and Magic Johnson beating Indiana State and Larry Bird 75-64 at the Huntsman Center in Utah for the men's NCAA championship. You know the story from there. Magic to the Lakers, Bird to the Celtics, and one of the great rivalries that really saved the NBA. Who knows where they'd be now if that hadn't happened. But it was a rivalry that was formed in this game on this night, and again, helped the NBA in so many ways, and we're seeing the repercussions of that now. Magic over Larry for the title on this day back in 1979 gets our moment of awe. Hey, thanks so much to our guest, the great Mike DeCourcy, coming by from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network. Also, Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. We always appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by and supporting what we're doing here. It's a Sports IQ. I'm Larry Smith. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.